Disclaimer: the following video contains an organized and objectified remix music tier list from the Super Smash Bros. Series. It contains provoking thoughts and concerns from each remix in the games, all coming from this one random guy on the internet. Music is subjective, so not everyone's thoughts and lists might match with myself and others, so please take this into consideration. There will be anger, rage, and a tiny hint of salt, so watch at your own risk. If you do enjoy this video, however, go ahead and give it a like and share it amongst your peers, and why not go ahead and comment on why my tier list is so bad and why my choices were not to your liking. I would actually love to see what you have to say after watching this video. All things considered, I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in on what I have to say in this video. Now, let's get right to it and enjoy the sounds of the, remixes of the Super Smash Bros. Series. Enjoy. Good day everybody, and welcome back to the second video of the Remix tier list. We finally reached the 400th rank on our list, and I'm not even an eighth of the way done here, just barely getting started. Fucking Christ, why do you even do this project? Procrastinating aside, we're starting off with a Star Fox remix for today, and our first one for the tier list. This is the main theme from Star Fox 64, and plays basically when you boot up the game and plays at the title screen. Just like a title theme should be. This is a simple orchestrated rendition compared to the original compressed song found on the 64, but the remix doesn't really differentiate itself otherwise. It's just that, with the same tempo and composition, so not very original in that regard. But besides that, the music really falls flat here too. Doesn't really leave an impact and has much to be desired in my opinion. But if I'm going to be completely honest here for the Star Fox franchise of music in Smash, I would much rather listen to the remixes that are orchestrated, rather than being used with a synth. This Star Fox remix is basically the only exception that I have for not enjoying the orchestrated music here. It's just not hitting all of the right marks for a showdown in Smash, rather it's like the beginning phase to it, given that it is a title theme after all. And by the way, during the creation of this remix ranking tier list, I noticed that a lot of these title theme remixes for Smash are a bit lower than remixes that are provided during gameplay from the original games. This one is no exception. And on a small tangent is that the Star Fox 64's main title theme has the most amount of remixes for our main title theme in Smash history, only being 3. I already covered one of them briefly, being the 64 variant. This is the one produced for Melee, so that leaves only one more to talk about. And spoiler alert, the last one is actually pretty high up the list, so don't expect to see it anytime soon. Might as well go ahead and cover another Melee remix here while I'm at it. It's the athletic theme from Super Mario World for the Super NES. This theme is played on the overworld or athletic levels in said game, and it has two variations to them. One with just Mario or Luigi traversing the levels by themselves, and then a variation of the theme but when riding on Yoshi, which adds a touch of musical uniqueness to the tune. There are only a few instruments in this remix, a banjo which plays the melody of the theme, the acoustic and bass guitar which supports it, and then a simple woodblock which comprises the Yoshi riding section of the song. This woodblock comes in around the 15-second mark that passed into the remix, then it will continuously play throughout the entirety of the piece until the music stops. So that is a cool detail that I love to see in these types of arrangements. A very simple and clean remix for a pretty well-known Super Mario song. This remix is probably the simplest one though on the list, only having 4 instruments and an average runtime of 40 seconds if you're not looping. Given to that aspect, it can be a bit cumbersome to be listening to this remix while playing a match of Smash with high stakes or long fight times. I do find this remix quite catchy since it has a really fast tempo compared to the original. However, I can also see that it could be annoying to some if played for long periods. Even I'm a victim to this, so I'm going to be placing this remix here pretty low on my tier list. I'm not a glorified hater for this one. Complex instrumentations doesn't always make a remix better, as you can see where I put other remixes before this one such as Now or Never and Desperate Struggle, but then again this remix is just a bit too simple, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, gonna commit Yoshi genocide and move on to the next level. I mean, remix. Alright, we've reached our first of many Mega Man remixes on this list. I really love this franchise and the music in general, but boy, what a crapstorm this one turned out to be. Bomb Man Stage is a theme from the first Mega Man game on the NES, where Mega Man goes through the Bomb Man level. This remix wholly comprises of a synth and has techno themes and styles throughout the piece, similarly found in the original game with a bit of a tempo increase. A small little Easter egg is that a 3-second excerpt of the Elecman stage theme can also be heard at the end of the remix before looping. Pretty nice touch. But with the athletic theme from Super Mario World I just mentioned moments ago, this remix is clocked in at a measly 40 seconds, making this one of the shortest remixes in the entire Smash series, and the shortest Ultimate remix by far. I am a little bit upset that this is so short, especially when this was produced from Ultimate, which has generally lengthy runtimes for their remixes. It honestly feels like a small project that Nobuko Toda made on the side apart from his other arrangements. Hey, Mr. Sakurai, Ultimate is coming out in a few days. Let me put in one more remix for the game. Is how I picture when thinking when this came into fruition. And I'm going to be brutally honest, I don't really like most of Toda's works in general. Sorry if you do. Like yeah, the melody and the music is alright, but this remix has already looped around 3 times in the background during my explanation already, so it doesn't make it that great when playing in Smash. It's going to get dull and old really fast. A short little rundown for a short little remix is all you're going to get out of me for this one. Yay! More title theme remixes to go over now. Although this time we're tackling the Donkey Kong Country Returns main theme, but with vocals instead. Like I said, this is the main menu theme for the Wii game Donkey Kong Country Returns. This theme is basically a remix to the original Donkey Kong arcade game, as well as the original Donkey Kong Country game for their opening pieces too. But really, who is keeping track here? The musical interpretation here is basically a one-to-one copy of the original Returns main menu theme. However, adding the use of vocalization from the Kong family singing the main melody of the song this time around. The remix not only includes the vocals, but also adds an electric guitar as well that can be heard throughout the piece, not found in the original game, so it's more of a remix than I previously thought, even though it does keep the same tempo and composition from the original title theme. With all that being said, I can't really give this remix a lot of credit since it can be a direct copy of the original game, but I gotta say that I quite like it a lot actually. It's a little cheesy and wacky, but not in an annoying kind of sense. It's just honestly a fun time listening to this by itself. The vocals are a cool addition since the original voice actors, which I believe were Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie Kong, are put into this remix, and I think they did a great performance, I will say. Other than that, though, not really much else to mention for this one. Unfortunately, it isn't the greatest remix to fight in Smash 2, so docking points off of that as well as the originality. If there was an increased tempo and different instrumentation here, other than found in the original game, I would like to see this much higher, but overall, a 5.5 out of 10 in my book. Speaking of title themes with little to no originality,
space, below the surface of planet Zegas, Samus Aran faced the space pirates. She destroyed their operation, wiped out the parasites called Metroids, and defeated Mother Brain. But the pirates were far from finished.
yeah, another title theme with no originality, wouldn't you believe it? And also, I've realized that this is another Kenji Yamamoto arranged remix back-to-back. It's a small world. This remix is comprised of two themes from the original Metroid Prime game first heard on the GameCube. And as the title suggests, the first part of the remix being the opening title screen, and the second part being the main menu theme of the game, which can also be heard when listening to the end credits. Unlike in the original games, however, this remix includes narration at the beginning of the piece, and funnily enough that this same narration used here was actually unused in the files for the original game. Pretty cool piece of gaming trivia if you ask me. Mr. Yamamoto is also the original composer for the Metroid Prime games as well, and just like with the Donkey Kong Country Returns vocal remix, this one is also a similar one-to-one recreation of the same instrumentation from the original themes of the game. So it's not really a remix, more like a collaboration between two themes. The only time that this remix was, well, being remixed is near the end of the piece before the loop, which adds a unique guitar riff along with the beginning narration, but that's about it. Yeah, almost a one-to-one source material song gets no originality points here, and I'm heavily butchering this in the tier list. But I gotta say, I do enjoy the atmosphere behind it all, especially in stages like Frigate Orpheon and Brinstar Deaths. It is super chilling and I love it. It's the reason why I have this remix so high before the shitters. Definitely not the best remix song to fight to in Smash here, but I would rather play this one than the others from the list so far. My bias is definitely showing here. Also, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you to play Metroid Prime, either the remastered version on the Switch or the GameCube original. Mr. Yamamoto did a fantastic job with the soundtrack. You won't regret it. Oh man, we go from pretty uneventful remixes to this one that just tries way too hard than it really needs to be. This is the Duck Hunt medley from Ultimate, and this remix takes a bunch of small songs and jingles from the original NES game and turns it into a hard rock piece. The small themes include the Duck Hunt intro as well as the clay shooting game, which are brought into life with modern instruments like the electric and bass guitars, and a drum set in the background while the Duck Hit, Perfect, Miss, and Score Count jingles are taken from the original game. So talking about this remix here, I wouldn't mind it if it wasn't such a mishmash mess of bullshit, but here we are. Taken into account from the other remixes like the old school Pac-Man and Donkey Kong remixes I said in my first video, where I just don't like these old game sounds with not so varying degrees of flair added to them. Well, in this case for this Duck Hunt remix, seems like there is just an overabundance of degrees and flair that it doesn't know when to shut the fuck up. I honestly have no idea what this remix wants to be. Like, we got the hard rock instrumentation of a classic game, like, that's good and all. But then the classic sound effects come into the piece randomly, and you get this. But done in a very bad way in my opinion. Like, in certain sections of the remix, they have a theme going in tandem with the classic sound effects, and it just sounds so fucking weird that no normal person would have brought this in and think it sounds that good. Also, I wanted to talk real quick about some of these Ultimate remixes such as this one. Sakurai did say that he wanted more upbeat music in this iteration of Smash that is more fitting for a fight and fun to listen to, and I completely agree that the music in Ultimate do make some of these Smash remixes some of my favorites in video game history. But this remix in particular just does it so horribly. It definitely missed a mark on what should have fit to make a really great and fun remix to play in Smash. Later on there will be more Ultimate remixes such as this that try to go way too hard than it really needs to be. But I really think that this one is just the worst out of the whole bunch. Not including the other three I mentioned before this one, of course. Those Ultimate remixes that I just mentioned will be super apparent on why I don't like them in the first place, but we will cross that bridge once we get to them in time. I guess I'm happy that Maki Kiryoka actually made a much better style of music than her other previous remixes. This is actually her third one on the tier list if you haven't been keeping track. She has the potential to make some great stuff here, but I guess we will see where I put her other remixes down on this tier list in the future. Yeah, we are going to be covering another Ultimate remix so soon. This one being the first Castlevania remix on the list, and coming from the PlayStation 1 cult classic, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This piece is named Dance of Gold, and this originally plays when Alucard explores the Alchemy Laboratory area in Dracula's castle. The original song was made as an orchestrated waltz through the use of a MIDI compression technique that felt a bit authentic in a way. The remix for this song in Smash includes a live orchestrated waltz style too, but then it transitions twice to a heavy metal style of composition with the use of electric guitars, piano, bass, and a drum kit, while generally having the same beats per minute with both styles of music throughout the remix. I am an avid heavy metal lover. The music genre is one of my favorites to listen to, but I can't help but not really like this piece when it transitions from orchestra to heavy metal styles. Man, that first transition when I first heard it really made me despise this remix with a burning passion. Whenever I hear the orchestral waltz style, it really does scream to me that this is Castlevania. And then the heavy metal parts get thrown and mixed in really terribly in my opinion. Especially with the second transition from the orchestra to the heavy metal section at the minute and 40-second mark of the piece. Seriously, one of the worst transitions I honestly ever heard in my life. I honestly wanted to put this remix lower than planned, but I decided not to. The remix can be played at high octane levels of Smash, since the heavy metal goes really well with the Castlevania aesthetic of Dracula's castle. I just really hate how the mixing of the orchestra and heavy metal parts are portrayed through this piece. I do like the original song a lot, and I think it could have been a bit better than the remix if it got ported over to Smash if I'm being truthfully honest. But then again, the original is a bit on the softer side and could be considered uneventful. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would always love to hear the opinions of others, and why my opinion sucked major ass or something along the lines of that. Next up, we have another arrangement by Hide and Hide, and the last remix they have produced in the Smash series. A bit disappointing to think about, but I wouldn't expect them to be so high on the list in the first place, hence the style of music that they produce. This remix is from the niche one-off RPG DS title, Glory of Heracles, released in 2008. This remix comprises of 2 tracks from said game. The first featured is Battle Theme 4, which plays when the party is battling against enemies, then transitions into the second track, which is named Field 2, when the party is in the overworld section of the game. Like what was being said with the Smash 4 remix of King Dedede's theme that Hide and Hide also arranged, the instrumentation is very Japanese influenced with the use of a shakuhachi and shamisen. God forgive me for unintentionally butchering these instrument names, but what wasn't represented in the DDD remix and why I have it much higher on the tier list is having percussion instruments incorporated into the remix. Finally, an actual W. The piece really has some oomph going for it now, with a taiko and bass drum that gets played in the battle theme portion of the piece, which actually plays like a battle theme would sound. Definitely reminds me of Ghost of Tsushima in a way, which is funny enough that Hide and Hide did not make any music for that game. Their style of music would really fit in with that title. Regardless, I wouldn't really play this remix in an actual game of Smash still, but the presentation is definitely there this go around. I get the feudal era instruments of Japan is a really interesting way of conveying music, but in this case, I don't think it really fits in with Smash, and it feels out of place in my opinion. So I'm slotting this remix here on the tier list. The game Glory of Heracles is a weird game to be making a remix for anyways. I would have never heard of this game if it wasn't for Smash, so it's kinda cool for having more obscure Nintendo representation through music and some spirits, making this truly one of the crossovers of all time. What I would have liked better is to have an orchestra be created for this remix instead of feudal Japan instruments, but it seems that I would be super hating on it for no reason at this point. I think this remix does stand on its own for what it is, and I can respect that, but that's all the praise I'm really giving it. Moving on now. Coming to another chiptune style of remix from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 of all games. I'm sure many of you didn't expect this type of retro-sounding remix to be featured in this particular game series of all things. Tiger Tiger is a minigame in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where you collect points in order to upgrade the character Poppy, a party member in the game, to make her more powerful. The whole track list from the original game is comprised of chiptuney songs since the minigame acts like an old 8-bit game, so it works well in that regard. The remix is a medley of sorts consisting of its Type B, C, then D music. Sadly, Type A is left out of this remix. Yuzo Koshiro was one of the few composers who have been working on video game music since the very beginning, so I'm guessing he is a good fit for this type of remix, and I gotta say, he did a solid job harkening back to his older days, unlike his previously mentioned Pac-Man remix in Smash, but I've already said that enough times, so I should probably stop talking about that now. Sorry, it just lives rent-free in my head. According to the SSB Wiki, he used an FM synthesizer to make this remix, and it sounds drastically different from the songs found in the original Tiger Tiger minigame, so I will give out bonus points for differentiating the original songs into the remix. However, it still sounds like an old-ass game, and for that, I'll put it here on the tier list. I know, I'm being a super stingy person for no reason, but I just like the modernized remixes much more than these retro-style remixes that Smash has produced. But actually, I'm a bit surprised I like this remix more than the others. It has a super satisfying beat and tempo to it, and doesn't sound like complete horseshit or outlandishly annoying unlike the previous chiptune remixes in Smash, so I'll give it that much credit at least. But I definitely would rather listen to other remixes in general for Smash. Even the music in the Xenoblade series that were put in are so much better to listen and fight to. And playing this remix on either Gaur Plains or Cloud Sea of Allrest, the stages that are tied to the Xenoblade series, makes the remix so out of place and unpreferable. I think that some fans really like this remix, however, but I just have to dunk it here and move on to more fitting music. Looks like we got another remix with a medley of songs to go over again. This being the Legend of Zelda medley. This is a medley of songs from the original The Legend of Zelda NES game, and it includes the main title theme, overworld theme, puzzle solve jingle, and the dungeon theme. It also includes Zelda's Lullaby from Ocarina of Time, which plays when young Link confronts young Zelda at the Hyrule Castle Gardens. The instrumentation for this remix is actually pretty wild, taking a form of Spanish influence with a bunch of acoustic guitars comprising the main melody, with supporting snare drum, maracas, and clapping noises. Now this is a pretty gigantic take of a medley incorporating a Spanish adaptation from an amazing franchise like Zelda. I'm really all for it, but I just kinda wish it was a bit better. Is that a really terrible thing to say? Don't get me wrong, it's a fine remix for what it's worth, but I wish it had like brass horns or trumpets in the main lineup. That would be pretty cool to hear. Aside from all that, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it when playing in Smash either. In fact, after doing this project, I am super duper sick of listening to the main theme of Zelda so much that I don't want to go and play a Zelda game for a very, very long time. They overuse that and the overworld Zelda theme for Smash remixes so much that I am literally over the edge of not wanting to do anything Zelda related in the next few years. Unfortunately, I still have more remixes to go talk about, and guess what? I'm not even close to finishing. Fuck. Long story short, I preferably don't like this remix while playing in Smash, but I can tolerate it for a little bit, but that's about it. For long periods of time, yeah, I'll just get sick of it, and the aesthetic of the music too. Don't get me wrong, the Spanish influence is an interesting take that I do wish I heard more for game music. Actually, there is one other remix for Smash that kinda does the same thing, but done exceptionally better than what this remix made it out to be. It is much higher on the list. You'll just have to wait and find out where I put that one at, dear viewer. Here we have the second out of 3 cut remix songs in the Smash franchise. Quite near from the previously cut jungle level theme from Brawl in the tier list, but now we have the ground theme for Super Mario Bros. To cover. As the title suggests, this is the classic Super Mario Bros. Overworld theme on the NES, which can be heard throughout the game when Mario's above ground. Not only does it have that, but it also plays a bit of the underground theme, as well as the game over and level clear themes at the end of the remix, making it a medley of sorts too. This remix is a bit interesting since it incorporates a reggae Jamaican style that is played throughout the remix, with a marimba, electric and bass guitar, a synth, and various percussion instruments. Gotta say that this is definitely one of the funkier types of compositions that was put into the Smash series. It's an influence that we rarely hear in Smash, like with the Legend of Zelda medley, made with a different stylized music choice. So I would assume that there will be a lot of controversy on if players would like to listen to this type of music style or not. With all that being said, I think I can understand why this remix wasn't included in later entries for Smash. It's yet another version of the ground theme for Super Mario Bros., which already has a massive amount of renditions for the Mario universe. I think I'll go ahead and assume that it was okay to get rid of one track in this oversaturated lineup. And also, this is the second remix for the ground theme made for Brawl, while the first one was remixed by the great Koji Kondo, so maybe the naming convention type of thing might have something to do with that as well. While I haven't played this remix in a game of Smash since it has been removed, I think I could also really not see myself playing this in a hyped up game of Smash. It's a bit too relaxing even if it has a killer underground theme portion, but even then it tends to be on the mellower side of things. Great track overall though. I probably won't miss it too much when playing, but goddamn, I can just picture Mario break dancing on the beach with the sunset behind him whenever I listen to this remix. I have super weird thoughts, I know. Now, for these next few remixes on the list, I'm slotting in a bunch of orchestral pieces that, don't get me wrong, are very great pieces in their own right, but are far from really being good fight music that are fun to listen to while playing in Smash. The first of which is the Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels medley. This medley of songs comprises of the ending theme first, then the underground theme, followed by the 1-up jingle, hurry up jingle, then the underwater theme, superstar theme, and finally ends with the level clear theme, then repeats itself back to the start with the ending theme. A bunch of songs in this remix, and finally one that doesn't cover the oversaturated overworld theme for once. Pretty awesome. But contrary to the title, all of these songs from this medley can be heard from the original Super Mario Bros. Game. Calling this the Lost Levels medley doesn't make sense, but I can see why they did this to avoid confusion with the other Super Mario Bros. Medley that debuted alongside this one in Smash 4. The original one being arranged by Koji Kondo, as I've already covered from the last video. I already gave my short essay about why that remix doesn't do so well, so I guess you can say that this medley is better than that one, but I'm not giving it that much credit since this remix is not far from its position. The only difference that the original Lost Levels game has from the original Super Mario Bros. Game is an extended version of the ending theme which can be heard at the beginning of this remix. It's not all that different in my opinion, but it's there, for some reason. Anyways, yeah, great orchestral series of songs from the first Mario game, I mean, the Lost Levels Mario game, but like I always say, just not gonna be all that exciting when playing a game of Smash with. I probably need to say something other than that phrase, but all I am is just speaking the truth here. It's just an orchestra piece, great to listen to by itself, but I can't see myself listening to it while playing the game. It's just that simple. Also, I feel like this remix can fit better at like a banquet or a graduation of some kind instead of intense fighting. I just wanted to say that. I don't know why it pops up in my head whenever I listen to this remix. Alright, it's time to move on before I say any more weird stuff. Next up on our orchestrated rundown of remixes is Lost in Thoughts All Alone from Fire Emblem Fates on the 3DS, and also the first Fire Emblem remix to be seen on this tier list as well. This song is generally the main theme of the game, appearing all throughout the main story and cutscenes that is mainly sung by the character Azura, but the vocals unfortunately are not present here. The remix depicts an orchestral version that was arranged by the original composer from the game, Masato Koda, and it also has an excerpt of the piece named End of All, which can be heard during the final chapter of all 3 routes in the game, which plays near the end of this remix before the loop back. So, my thoughts on this remix, well, for it being just an orchestral piece, it's honestly pretty mid. As a huge Fire Emblem fanatic, I'm pretty picky on music from the series, and legit having 4 versions of Lost in Thoughts all alone in Smash is incredibly depressing. It also isn't that impactful for an orchestrated piece. I really need some boom in my music to make it very appealing to be played in a fight, and I'm just not seeing it here. While researching for this project, I was actually surprised that a lot of people praised this piece for being an awesome remix. And sure, it can be good in the right context, but it's just not it while fighting in my personal opinion. The Ultimate Remix has a different approach to the theme being a full orchestra, rather than the Smash 4 remix being an orchestral rock approach to it, which I will have nicer things to talk about to that one when the time comes, but maybe since that version was made first, Koda probably wanted to create a new version of Lost in Thoughts. But even then, I really don't think making Lost in Thoughts a second time, 4th time being implemented in Smash, was the right play here. Really wish that other music from Fates had made its way into Smash Ultimate, but if I say any more things about that topic, then I could be rambling on for much too long than needed. So let's just move on to something that isn't this mid-as-hell shit. The next orchestrated remix is... oh boy, another main theme from Zelda, how original. This theme plays on the overworld map from the NES game The Legend of Zelda, and the theme will become a series staple song throughout the series, as I'm sure all of you have already known. However, this remix is the first Zelda theme to actually be recorded with a live orchestra, so that's a pretty big mark going forward for the series. Even though this is a huge step, I'm still going to call this one pretty mediocre at best for a Smash song. Just like these other orchestra pieces that I'm already going over. Yeah, I don't have a heart for liking Zelda and orchestra music that much. Tell me something I don't know. The abundance of overworld themes in Zelda for Smash is pretty appalling, but this remix in particular is nice at least, but is very short. Just as short as the Super Mario World Athletic theme and Bomb Man stage, clocking in at around 40 seconds. Sheesh, if you can endure listening to this remix on repeat over and over for a 7-minute of Smash, and not stab your ears with a fucking knife, then I shall give you my full respect, and kindly ask you to play a decent remix while we're at it. The only reason this isn't any lower on my tier list, well, it is a nice piece, and I respect the vision it has at the time, since Melee was such a leap forward for the Smash and Zelda series that I have to give the composers and musicians credit for their awesome work. Otherwise, from its merits, this will be placed here on my tier list. Now, we have Pokemon Gym and Evolution from Pokemon Red and Blue to go over. This remix features iconic themes from the Pokemon series that were first introduced in the original Game Boy game, and has been staple songs in the series going forward. The first part of the remix is when the player enters and traverses through a Pokemon gym, and the second part is when a Pokemon evolves into a new evolution. Throughout the remix, an orchestra plays similar to a march style of music for the gym theme, then an electric guitar chimes in when the evolution theme kicks in. All in all, not a bad remix per se, but dare I say that this is honestly a pretty boring remix to listen to in and out of Smash. This really just doesn't get me pumped at all, and both of these themes on their own should be pretty gratifying since they are very exciting in the Pokemon games. I just don't get that same feeling with this remix. Even with the guitar being played in the evolution theme, it's a bit too late to get something started that doesn't deliver the right stuff to save this from being super lackluster. The tempo is very drab, and it just goes way too soft for my liking. I think I will get some backlash for this placement, but come on guys. There are plenty of other remixes for Pokemon in the Smash series that are way better than this sorry excuse. The only thing going for it is the nice composition, but everything else is wasted potential to me personally. Coming back to another Fire Emblem song is Preparing to Advance. This theme comes from Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones on the Game Boy Advance, and it plays during the preparation phase when the player gets the army ready for battle at the start of chapters in the game. This composition was made originally by Yoshihiko Kitamura, who only has done work for this one game in his entire video game musical career. That's quite something. But he came back to supervise this remix while the arrangement was handled by Yuka Sugioka, who is a main staple composer for the Fire Emblem series. The remix is pretty much a remastered version of the original Game Boy Advance theme, with the same tempo but with updated instrumentation to fit the orchestral type of style to the remix. So I just gotta say, as this being the only Sacred Stones remix and song in general for Smash, out of all the music that they put into Smash from this one game, it was the fucking Preparations theme? Bro, they had many other cool songs to choose from, but this was the one that they needed to be put in apparently. Granted, this was a new game at the time, releasing 2 years before Brawl, so I guess it makes some sense. This isn't the best preparation theme though. Fire Emblem 7, Fates, and Engage have some really great ones, but I'm getting way off topic with my Fire Emblem nerdom here. For this being the only preparation theme from Fire Emblem, you can see why I can put it so low since there's not a lot of action that goes on with this remix. I will say one thing about this though, is that the percussion elements go super hard here. That snare drum, xylophone, and cymbal make this remix stand out and I love it. Also, this does give off some serious Tellus music vibes here. For those who are unfamiliar, those are the games that Ike is from, and if you listen to the soundtrack from that game and compare it to this remix, I think they are very similar in that regard. Maybe because Yuka Sugioka also made that game and made this remix here, makes total sense to me. All in all, I love listening to this piece by itself, but not a very good choice of putting it into Smash. Very sad to see so low, but I have to have my unbiased lens on. No remix gets left unchecked, especially when they are slow and not that appealing for a good old tussle. Oh man, I'm ready for the torches and pitchforks for this one. Next up on the list is the legendary Air Ride Machine. This track originally played on the GameCube game Kirby Air Ride for the game mode City Trial, when a player is riding on either the Dragoon or the Hydra, the two legendary air ride machines, hence the title of the remix. Shoga Sakai originally composed this track from the game, and now remixed it with a live orchestra instead of a MIDI, and I just gotta say, the live orchestra from this remix makes this composition 10 times better than what you can hear from the original. Yeah, I said that. I'm ready to be thrown into a prison cell for saying that because apparently, a lot of people like the original one a lot better. Don't know what's up with them. So from all that good positivity, you'd expect this remix to be a bit higher up on the tier list, right? Y'all should know better than to trust me to put a mediocre orchestra remix from Smash really high up to begin with. Sorry, is mediocre a bad word to describe this? It's not mediocre in the grand scheme of things, but there's so many other better Kirby remixes that I would much rather listen to than this, honestly. There's also a lot of slow and melodramatic sections that don't make it too exciting to be played while fighting in Smash, and that the remix is basically a one-to-one copy of the original track, just with updated instrumentation. Granted, I'm not a huge Kirby fan, and I have never played Air Ride before. Yeah, I know I should have my gaming license revoked and go to hell for even saying that. Maybe in another dimension that the other me would actually grow up with Kirby games, and Air Ride being my favorite game of all time, I would have somehow put the legendary Air Ride machine in the #1 remix slot, and will be praised for my super intellectual pick and amazing tastes. Yeah, in your dreams. This is the me in this dimension that is a super Fire Emblem fan instead. Yay! Y'all Kirby fans just better be grateful that I ended up placing 2 Fire Emblem remixes before this one though. That's all you're ever going to get out of me for this. Funny enough, we have another Fire Emblem remix to go over that Yuka Tsujiyoko also arranged. We have Edge of Adversity. Due to the context of this remix going over from the original game, there's actually a massive spoiler warning for this theme. If you don't like spoilers for a 30-year-old Japanese-only game, please go to this timestamp here. This theme plays from a cutscene found in the 4th Fire Emblem game, Genealogy of the Holy War, where it plays at the end of Chapter 5 when the first generation main character Sigurd and his party get brutally murdered at the Battle of Valhalla, ending the first half of the game. This remix plays just like it did in the original Super NES game, such as the same tempo but with updated music from an orchestra. Yuka Tsujiyoko also composed the original theme and remixed this as well. Like I said previously about preparing to advance on why that got the remix treatment when there were so many other music choices to remix, I'm going to have to slide into that piece as well. As this being the only Genealogy of the Holy War remix in Smash that isn't a featured part in a medley, there were a wide variety of other awesome tracks that could have been used instead. Also, they chose a song that has fucking spoilers in it. Granted, the game has been out for almost 30 years at this point, so I can understand why you want to flex your music skills with a song you've composed all this time. I can kinda see that vision happening. Hashtag remake the Jugs Roll games. But yeah, it really isn't my favorite orchestra composition to play during Smash. This theme originally was very dark and sad. Trying to make it more dramatic and bombastic for Smash kind of ruined the whole appeal to the original track to begin with. I kind of feel empty when this remix gets played, and there are a few down parts too where there's nothing to really listen to, so it feels right for me to slot this remix into this placement. Granted, it's still pretty solid from the original in fairness, but that's all I'm going to give it. Here we have the last of the mostly orchestral pieces in Smash, is Starker and Wicked Child from Castlevania on the NES. I'll let you know now that there are still a lot of remixes in Smash that consist of a main orchestra that I haven't covered on this list yet. I just wanted to show the ones that aren't very noteworthy. Granted, this is still a piece that I actually like a lot, but doesn't really have a lot of impact when playing in Smash. Getting back on track, this remix covers the second and third levels of the game. The second level is called Starker, or is it Stalker? Apparently, there's another mistranslation with this title, but I've been told that this isn't a mistranslation at all and it actually meant to be called Starker. Please let me know if I'm correct or not down at the comments. I will continue to say Starker during the rest of this explanation. And then the second half of this remix features the music for the third level of the game, being Wicked Child. This remix is done with a classical orchestra, as you can already tell, and the tempo and the instrumentation matches up to the original game's soundtrack, which is a pretty great faithful adaptation. As I mentioned before, while I do like this piece a lot, it really doesn't own up to being the all-glorified and fantastic fighting song for Smash. It doesn't really have any oops and driving force a remix has later down the line that I find really impactful for fighting, and so I think I'll put this here on my tier list, sadly. I do, however, really like the transitions from Starker to Wicked Child in the middle of this piece. Way better of a transition than Dance of Gold. God, I just can't get over how badly it transitions in that piece. This remix also has a really nice tempo increase compared to the originals too, and can I say that I really like the Wicked Child portion of this piece as well. Damn, it's just really awesome. Honestly, I would like to only listen to the Wicked Child section by itself since it's my favorite, but I do have to say that without the first Starker part of the remix that it would feel bland in comparison, so I guess I'm glad that they merged the two together for a pretty awesome orchestra composition. Now, with this all out of the way, time to go back into remix tracks that don't use up a whole orchestra to cover its pieces. But just to reiterate on this again that I don't dislike any of these mentioned tracks. Except maybe Lost in Thoughts and the Lost Levels medley, they're really bland, but they just don't match up with the style of Smash Bros. That I hold dear, and that's why I put these remixes so low on my tier list. Maybe if I made a tier list of Smash music on its own merit and not have counted it in-game, I could have these pieces much higher, but oh well, maybe another time. Oh man, coming back to some snoozers again. We got Route 209 from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl originally on the DS. In the original game, this is played when the player traverses through Route 209, but it can also be played when traversing Route 212 in the daytime as well. The remix mostly comprises a main piano-based composition, but has a more laid-back style with instrumentation like violins, trumpet, bass, drum set, and a synth. This remix mostly has the same tempo and instrumentation too, minus the compression from the original DS game, so a good quality of life change for sure. So my general thoughts on this remix, I just think that this is a pretty mediocre fight song and it's also really bland too. I never played Generation 4 Pokemon games and I'm not really sure if I'm missing out on them, so this remix doesn't really hold a lot of nostalgia for me. But as I mentioned previously way back when Sakurai said that he wanted the remixes to have more tension during battle, yeah, I'm not really feeling any tension at all from this. This remix is also infamous for being in the iconic Leo vs Tweak EVO 2019 match of its final game. I was a part of the Twitch chat and I fondly remember that a lot of people chatted about this remix and how funny or boring it was to them as we were all watching one of the most amazing sets of Ultimate history. Goes to show that music does matter in fighting games. Granted that Smash isn't technically a fighting game, more like a children's party game, but it has some cool moments in one-on-ones, so whatever. Point is, this remix is a sleeper song to be upfront. It has a very relaxing vibe and it's not an annoying track to listen to as the other remixes already mentioned, so I guess I'll give it that at least, but man, would I like some more amazing music to listen to than this, to be frank. Fortunately enough for all of you Pokemon lovers out there, there won't be another remix for the series on this list anytime soon. You're welcome. Coming around to our third of 6 jungle level themes is the jungle level tribal style remix from Smash 4. Just like the other jungle level themes, this is originally heard from the Super NES game Donkey Kong Country titled DK Island Swing that is played in the various jungle style levels found in the game. This remix takes a bit of an inspiration to the Wii game Donkey Kong Country Returns, where the style of music sounds very tribal-esque in most of its music tracks. It did fit that whole game very well. Speaking about tribal-esque styles, this remix features a bunch of tribal instruments. But on a big side note here, I'll probably butcher a lot of these names, so get ready. We have the pan flute, didgeridoo, kalimba, and various percussion instruments such as the bongos and vocal chanting which can be heard throughout this piece. While the style and the theming of this remix fitting the Donkey Kong game series perfectly, I can't really say the same for Smash as a whole. I don't really see myself enjoying this type of music while beating people up, or maybe getting myself beaten up in that regard. It's also just a bit too soft. It has too many wind instruments for this remix, which is alright, but I'd much rather hear banging percussion or other instrumentation instead. Putting this remix on this list is pretty justified, I would say. It's not too bad, but there are way better DK remixes, and other remixes for that matter, to be listening to anyways. Next up on the tier list, we got another type of remix for me. I'd like to say for this area, there will be a lot of mediocre Smash remixes from series such as Mother, Yoshi, Animal Crossing, and Zelda in my opinion, so get ready for them. Now talking about this remix, which uses an original title away from the game, I also believe this is a first for Smash. You call this a Utopia? That's the name of the title. This remix mostly takes place in the Newport City area of the Japan-only Game Boy Advance game, Mother 3, which is actually called His Highness's Theme. It could also be called Porky's Theme, which we will get to that one later down the line. This remix also has excerpts at the end from the songs The Pig King's Playroom and Theme of King P, so it's actually its own medley too. Now for the instrumentation side of things, it has a whole lot of styles to go over. For His Highness's Theme, it has a synth being the main melody and supporting percussions, which has a sort of a marching style to it. Then it switches over to a carousel type of theme in the Pig King's Playroom excerpt, kinda like the previously mentioned Rosalina remix I talked about earlier. Then lastly, a jazzy interlude with the theme of King P, rounding out the remix then leaning back to the marching theme of His Highness. Lots to talk about for this particular remix, and I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I generally prefer remixes that have one style music choice, maybe two, that's a bit stretching, but taking on 3 different types is a bit much. It's diverse in its styles, I'll give it that, but I just feel like it's trying way too hard and kinda stumbles on what it wants to be. My favorite part has to be the jazzy interlude heard at the end. If that jazzy sounding style was heard throughout the whole remix, I would like it a lot more and would put it up higher on the tier list, but it unfortunately doesn't. Apologies about my horrible taste to whoever likes it, but whoever does like it a lot, I just want to say that I have better taste than you, humbly. Another 8-bit sounding remix is next on the list. I understand what the composer was going for here, but I'm just not a huge fan of it regardless. This is from Area 6, a stage in Star Fox 64 where Team Star Fox traverses through to progress in the game. From the title to this remix, there are two versions of this theme that was made for Smash. Version 2 is made as a more techno-inspired track that closely resembles the earlier Super NES Star Fox games, rather than its original track from Nintendo 64. The original composer for Star Fox 64, being Hajime Wakai, reprised his role to making both remixes for this game, but I will talk about version 1 at a later date. With all that being said, I'm not the hugest fan of the Super NES or Nintendo 64 inspired music creation that came with this remix. Going into this a little bit further, I really thought that this song actually came from the original game and was not a remix, so I was baffled beyond belief when I found out that this was indeed a remix that was made in Smash to begin with. I will give it the benefit of the doubt. It's not the worst retro-inspired track that came out for the Smash series. It's really upbeat and not that annoying to listen to like the past remixes that I displayed already, but I honestly wouldn't want to listen to this when I have way better remixes that I haven't even gone over yet, for Star Fox and other franchises in general. The mood to me in this remix is like if you're playing a futuristic rail shooter like old school Star Fox games, but not so much when I play it in Smash. Like I said earlier, I would honestly listen to the orchestral versions of Star Fox music in Smash than these obscure retro styles of music instead, which I feel like that music choice for the Star Fox series is a bit better in my opinion, and we will see plenty of those styles of remixes for Star Fox as we move down on the tier list in time. Uh-oh, sound the alarm. Incoming main title theme alert. This time being from Yoshi's Woolly World. When starting this project, I honestly expected a lot of the Yoshi remixes to be pretty much all on the bottom of my tier list, but this is actually the first Yoshi series remix that I've covered that isn't Yoshi Story 64. Color me pleasantly surprised to see one so high up from the bottom. Well, actually I lied. The athletic theme from Super Mario World counts as a Yoshi remix now, for whatever reason. But personally, I don't really want to count it as one, so this will be the first one, okay? We'll just keep it at that. This remix is based off the main theme, or rather the title theme for the Wii U game of the same name. At the end of the remix, a snippet of the stage Sponge Cave Spelunking can also be heard as well. Unlike from the original, the remix is more upbeat and has a faster tempo with more of a marching type of style to it that has supporting acoustic guitars and drum percussions. The main melody consists of these whistles that the Yoshi series is well known for, which isn't that bad and not as annoying as I had previously thought. But man, if I could have any other type of brass or wind instrument, it would be way better than the whistling. I'm just happy that Taku Inouye made this remix more upbeat than the original. God, anything is better than listening to the original theme in my opinion. I'll give credit where credit is due, but I can't really bring myself to liking this remix all that much, even if it is better than the original. The use of acoustic guitar is super nice though. Many Smash 4 and Ultimate remixes are definitely missing out on letting that acoustic guitar be a part of the remixes, where this remix really lets that instrument shine. But that's pretty much all the positives. The negatives come from me being a little baby and not liking this while playing in a game of Smash, as you all have expected. Last up on today's video is another Mother 3 remix, wouldn't you believe it. This is the Mother 3 Love theme. The original song can be heard throughout the main game, such as the opening prologue, and when one of the main characters dies, so it is like a main theme of the game of sorts. Oh, spoilers for that last mention. My bad. Instrumentation-wise, it mostly uses acoustic and electric guitars as well as percussion instruments with a leading synth on its main melody. The remix is a very faithful interpretation from the original game with the same tempo and instrumentation, which in turn was also arranged by the original composer of the game, Shogo Sakai. Being its main theme of sorts, you can tell how I'm really not all that thrilled about it, being that I put it so low on the tier list. What Mr. Sakai doesn't really make in upbeat Smash remixes though, he does make it in beautiful pieces that fit the narrative of other video games, such as the Mother series. I actually like to listen to this one in particular on its own, but this being solely for Smash, I'm definitely going to be giving this a hard pass on my rating, especially at the ending portion since it slows everything down. Can't really say too much about this remix otherwise, since I never really played Mother 3, but man, if this was a song that made me cry and cop a field tier list, the remix would have definitely been up on the upper tiers for sure. Hey there, thanks again for watching this video to the end. I hope everyone enjoyed what you've seen or heard and that you can continue to watch this series till its completion. And I still have a long way to go, so we will see how it all turns out in the end. At the end of every video, I'm going to be doing a small outro section that I'd like to do. Talk a little bit about the project or maybe ask a question to you guys and you can leave your answer down in the comments. Something along the lines of that. These outros aren't generally scripted. I mean, they are a bit, but I hope you guys aren't tired of me sounding like a damn robot the entire time I talk about each song in these videos. I 100% use a script every time I record these voice lines, so I hope at least I have some sort of emotion going to these videos, and my voice isn't that boring or annoying yet. Guess it's a better time as any to tell you what mic I've been using. It's the Blue Yeti Nano microphone, and I also have a sound muffler attached to it that no weird white noise sounds come into these voiceovers. Hope it is in good quality, cause without that sound muffler, the quality would not match up to a lot of other big YouTubers, and people might click off the video if it wasn't professional enough. So hopefully I did a good job at not getting y'all to click off this video, even if my opinions might be super far-fetched at times. So yeah, I'm just going to be doing small bits and pieces of my project every so often in my outros, so hopefully you guys like them. And once again, thanks for sticking with me and hope to see you all in the next video. Have a great day, everybody.